This will be a lecture on the Bible's love song, the Song of Songs, by me, and my name is Dr. Joe Sprinkle. A little bit of an introduction to the Song of Songs. It has different titles that it's given. It's sometimes called the Song of Songs. That's literally what it begins by saying. And Song of Songs is a way of saying the greatest of songs. Just as King of Kings would be the greatest of kings, Song of Songs means the greatest of songs. It's also known as the Song of Solomon, and it's also known as Canticles. As far as the authorship of Song of Songs, the traditional view is that Solomon is the author, and so the Song of Songs, which is Solomon's, is taken to be authorship. Solomon is mentioned several times in the book, in chapter 1 and verse 5, chapter 3 and verse 7, as well as verse 9 and 11, and then chapter 8, 11, and 12. So it looks like it's in the time of Solomon. The alternative view, though, is that this may have been written about or for Solomon. And in that case, Solomon would not be the author. Note the narrative speaks of Solomon in the third person, which would be a mark against Solomonic authorship. In any case, as we said, Solomon is mentioned quite a few times, which suggests that it was written during the time of Solomon. There are certain characters in the Song of Songs. One character is the beautiful Shulamite maiden, that's mentioned in chapter 1. And then you also have the male voice. We could call him the bridegroom or the lover. And then you have the chorus of bride's friends. They're called the daughters of Jerusalem, and they sing refrains in chapter 1 and chapter 5 and chapter 6 and in chapter 8. For example, chapter 5 and verse 9, "How is your beloved better than others, most beautiful of women? How is your beloved better than others, that you charge us so?" Now, there are some characters that are disputed in the song. Famous 19th century Old Testament scholar Franz Delitzsch argued that the song portrays a love triangle. You have the Shulamite maiden, but then she had a shepherd lover, and then the lecherous Solomon. She wanted to run off with her shepherd lover, but she's been betrothed to the lecherous Solomon. Well, very few people accept Delitzsch's hypothesis and reading of the text, but because Delitzsch is such an important Old Testament scholar, his name is worth mentioning here. So anyway, the shepherd probably is not a separate character, but simply a metaphor for Solomon. Another disputed character in the book is God himself. God is never directly mentioned in the Song of Songs unless it occurs in chapter 8 and verse 6. There, the NIV refers to love as a mighty flame, but some translations, like the New American Standard Bible, interpret that as the flame of Yahweh, or the flame of the Lord. The NIV's rendering appears to be more probable, and if that's the case, then this book, like Esther, is one of the two books in the Bible where God is never specifically mentioned. There are different options of interpretation. The traditional view is that the Song of Songs is an allegory. Jews saw it as an allegory of God's covenant marriage with Israel. Christians see it as an allegory of the mystical union of Christ and the church. And one of the reasons why you want to have an allegorical interpretation is that this removes the erotic element from the Song of Songs. And it brings God back into the book. And so if you're a little embarrassed by the erotic language, and if you're embarrassed by the lack of mention of God, well, the allegorical method will solve those problems. The other option is to say this is a collection of love or wedding songs. The allegorical view seems contrary to the plain literal sense of the text. If the plain sense makes good sense, seek no other sense, is the old hermeneutical adage. And the plain sense is that this could be simply a collection of love or wedding songs. There's nothing in the text itself that indicates that there's any allegory here. And the allegorical view seems to be based on an unbiblical view of sexuality. And for such reasons, almost all modern interpreters, evangelical and non-evangelical, take the literal view that this is love poetry and not an allegory. If it's love poetry, is it a unified poem, or are there many independent ones? And there have been some that have tried to take it as a coherent drama and tries to see a storyline that works its way through the entire text, though it's hard to maintain that consistently, which is why most see it as a loose collection of love or marriage songs. Now, the basic theme of the Song of Songs is that romantic love is to be celebrated. The song teaches that human sexuality is intended by God to be enjoyed. It gives also marriage and premarital counsel. And insofar as this book gives some degree of counsel in the area of romantic love, you might be able to categorize this book broadly as wisdom literature. On the other hand, it seems so different than Proverbs or Ecclesiastes or Job that it perhaps deserves its own category, love poetry. But it does give some advice in the area of human sexuality. So what are the elements of advice that the song gives? Well, one of the things it suggests is that one should praise your spouse. It says in chapter 4 in verse 1 through 6, "How beautiful you are, my darling. How beautiful you are. Your eyes are like doves behind your veil. Your hair is like a flock of goats that have descended from Mount Gilead." I might comment that you might not want to say today to your girlfriend or wife that your hair is like a flock of goats, but it was meant to be a compliment, that it flows beautifully like goats going down the hill look. Your teeth are like a flock of newly shorn ewes, which have come up from their washing, all of which bear twins. In other words, they're very white, and you have all your teeth. Not one of them has lost her young. Your lips are like a scarlet thread. Your mouth is lovely. Your temples are like a slice of pomegranate behind your veil. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built with rows of stones, on which are hung 1,000 shields, all the round shields of the mighty men. Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle, which feed among the lilies. Until the cool of the day, when the shadows flee away, I will go my way to the mountain of myrrh and to the hill of frankincense. And so here he is praising the beauty of his beloved. And when it speaks of going my way to the mountain of myrrh, I think he is speaking metaphorically, but I'll let you figure out which mountains he has in mind. Another piece of marital counsel: don't be indifferent. Some counselors say that the opposite of love is indifference. You have a story in chapter 5, verses 3 through 8, where the bride was indifferent to the bridegroom. "I've taken off my robe. Must I put it on again? I have washed my feet. Must I soil them again? My lover thrust his hand through the latch opening. My heart began pounding for him. I arose to open for my lover, and my hands dripped with myrrh, my fingers with flowing myrrh on the handles of the lock. I opened for my lover, but my lover had left. He was gone. My heart sank at his departure. I looked for him, but I did not find him. I called for him, but he did not answer. The watchmen found me as they made their rounds in the city. They beat me. They bruised me. They took away my cloak, those watchmen of the walls. O daughter of Jerusalem, I charge you, if you find my lover, what will you tell him? Tell him that I am faint with love. Now, at the beginning, she shows indifference. Yeah, I've already taken off my robe. I don't want to go out and spend time with you. But then she had second thoughts, and then she regretted having done that and went out to find her lover who had knocked on the door and then left and couldn't find him, and instead found the night guard that sent her back home. But anyway, this tells us something about the need not to be indifferent to one's beloved. Another piece of advice is that you should show integrity, loyalty, faithfulness, and commitment in a marriage relationship. Song of Songs 4, verses 12 through 16. You are a garden locked up, my sister, my bride. You are a spring enclosed, a sealed fountain. Your plants are an orchard of pomegranates with choice fruits, with henna and nard and saffron, calamus and cinnamon, with every kind of incense tree, with myrrh and aloes and all the finest spices. You are a garden fountain, a well of flowing water streaming down from Lebanon. Awake, north wind, and come, south wind, blow on my garden that its fragrance may spread abroad. Let my lover come into his garden and taste of its choice fruits. Here the bride is described as a garden locked up just for the benefit of the bridegroom, of the lover. She's a spring enclosed, a sealed fountain. Again, only he has the lock. And she has prepared herself for him with all kinds of spices and perfumes, pleasures, erotic. Another one that talks about integrity, loyalty, faithfulness, and commitment. Chapter 7, verse 11 through 13. Come, my lover, let us go to the countryside. Let us spend the night in the villages. Let us go early to the vineyards to see if the vines have budded, if their blossoms have opened, and if the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. The mandrakes send out their fragrance, and at our door is every delicacy, both new and old, that I have stored up for you, my lover. Here it talks about the benefits that she is going to give to her lover, and all those sexual pleasures are stored up only for him, only for you, my lover. Yet another one that talks about integrity, loyalty, faithfulness, and commitment. Chapter 8, verses 10 through 12. She speaks of herself. I am a wall, and my breasts are like towers. Thus I become in his eyes like one bringing contentment. Solomon had a vineyard in Baal Hamon. He let out his vineyard to tenants. Each was to bring for its fruit 1,000 shekels of silver. But my own vineyard is mine to give. The 10,000 shekels are for you, O Solomon, and 200 are for those who tend its fruit. Freely gives it to him and to him alone. Again, integrity, loyalty, faithfulness, and commitment in the relationship. Now there's a line that's repeated a number of times. Do not arouse or awaken love until it pleases, or until she pleases. And what it seems to mean is do not start the process of erotic exchange until it's appropriate to do so. That piece of advice, wait until the right time, is repeated in chapter 8, verses 8 through 10. There it says, we have a little sister. She has no breasts. In other words, she's not old enough yet. What shall we do for our sister on the day when she is spoken for? Well, if she is a wall, we shall build on her a battlement of silver. But if she is a door, we shall barricade her with planks of cedar. I was a wall and my breasts were like towers. Then I became in his eyes as one who finds peace. Now, what's this language about wall and door? Well, these are metaphors for the girl. A girl who is a wall is one who's inclined to be chaste. Even she needs some reinforcement. We shall build on her a battlement of silver. But a girl who's a door, well, she's inclined to be too loose sexually, to open up too quickly. She especially needs walling up. And the advice here is wall up and protect one's sexuality until it's time to give it away. In other words, wait until marriage. And then the last thing that we can draw from the song is that marriage itself is a type of Christ and the church. Now, the Song of Songs is not an allegory, but there's at least an analogy here. The song is not a direct allegory of Christ and the church, but marriage itself is an analogy of Christ's relationship with the church, as Ephesians chapter 5, 23 through 32 speaks of. Human love between the sexes, then, is a type of Christ's love for the church. And so if you read the song and you think of, well, that love between the beloved and the lover is like the love between Christ and the church, you'll not be wrong. The allegorical view, while not the original intent of the song, does have a grain of truth. Well, that's my analysis of the Song of Songs, which is Solomon's, the Bible's love song. And my name is Dr. Joe Sprinkle.